Hey there, Alex here. For those of you new to Behind the Podium, I just want to give you a heads up that we do use adult language. You'll definitely want to grab a pair of headphones if there are kids around or you're at work. Now, on to the show.
Welcome to Behind the Podium, Unveiling the Coach. Problem solvers have problems too. So here at Behind the Podium, I, Jared Cohen, and my co-host Alexander Ellis discuss the struggles, philosophies, demands, and practices of the coach, or said more broadly, health and wellness practitioner. To provide quality coaching is to enhance someone's life in an everlasting and unfolding way. This is not easy and requires a lot of due diligence and self-mastery on the part of the coach to be able to perform. So without further ado, join us as we dig deeper into the depths of the coach's mind. Welcome back, or welcome to Behind the Podium, Unveiling the Coach. I am Jared Cohen with my partner in crime,
Alexander Ellis.
And today we go behind the podium for a second time, numero dos, with coach, movement educator, and founder of Stronger Human, Isabelle Barter. Isabelle was our guest on episode 24, and it is Alex's and my pleasure to welcome Isabelle back to Behind the Podium, Unveiling the Coach. Welcome.
Yay! Yay!
Round two.
Round two. Well, first I want to start by saying thank you to Alex and Jared so much for inviting me back. A lot has been happening since we spoke last, and so I'm excited to be here and to chat again over coffee.
Oh, yeah. Although I just had a smoothie, so whatever your morning drink of choice is. Well, we are definitely excited to have you back because as a new gym studio owner, you have just crossed the threshold of a new title, I guess we could say, that many of us have pondered about. Will it fit? Will it work? And I'm excited to pick your brain about the last, what is it, five months?
Yeah, about 5-6 months. Yeah. I am happy to share honestly and truthfully about what crossing over the coals has been like.
Yeah. The real question is, are you sleeping? And I know the answer. Occasionally.
Well, occasionally. I'm sleeping a lot more now than I was at the get-go. It's interesting because I think there are now 3 distinct phases that I've gone through in creating this movement space. The first was all the planning and the anxiety and the having to resign from certain positions and say goodbye, farewell, or keep in touch to certain students. And then actually in that process, once I had signed the lease, it was all, what am I building, contractors, what am I offering, building out the website. And I had no day-to-day responsibilities. So, my schedule was clear for about 6 weeks. Which was all in the building and production phase of the physical space. And so I had no restraints on time. I didn't have to use my body very much. I wasn't in front of clients very much. So it could be all of this mind work, which is a different kind of thing to recover from. So it was easy to have, because I didn't have structured time, I could still sleep even though it was requiring a ton of work. And then the actual opening phase happens, and working with clients, trying to revamp the schedule. Oh my God, this didn't work. I have to rebuild this part of the website while seeing a client at 8 a.m. tomorrow. And that's when the sleeping stops for a while. And mostly it was because of janitorial duties. I still had to clean the floor and make sure all the equipment was tidied and put away or moved around for the 14th time because it's in the wrong spot. So that phase went on for a while without sleep. And now I'm beginning to find the balance of how to get home, how to do all the tidying things on time, how to actually book clients to respect their schedule as well as my own, which has been a big shift, deciding what my operating hours are going to be personally. So now I'm in the phase where I am prioritizing sleep, especially after dealing with a respiratory infection that I couldn't get rid of because of lack of sleep. So here we are.
You mean taking clients at 4 a.m. until 11 p.m. is not sustainable? What?
Right. It's like every blog post out there will tell you that, and every person you talk to will tell you that. And then you get faced with the client who's like, so does 6 a.m. tomorrow work? And you have to really think about like, oh, I have to pay the rent soon. So should I say yes? And like, oh, I really want you to be part of this, this studio, this gym. Right. How do I make you happy? What do I do? So there's definitely dilemmas that go on with that.
Yeah, and I think too, when you're in a growth phase, there is a lot of saying yes.
Right.
And then you reach a point where you're like, okay, we've kind of leveled out. Let me set my boundaries.
Right.
That will now stay in place. Like once those boundaries are set, they are permanent. But with each growth phase, maybe we say yes to some new things that we hadn't considered before.
Yeah, I think what I've actually did was I was very conservative with my schedule, trying to be careful about how much I put on in the morning. I'm a late owl. I'd rather stay later than be there super early. I'm just a little bit foggy in the morning. It's hard for me to get going kind of quickly, and knowing that about myself, I just said I'm going to wait until I can bring on people who can take on early morning, which I'm still figuring that process out, and I'll just do the later work. My tendency is actually to book too late, not realizing how early I started. So it's either end of it, And you're right. It's what growth phase you're in, because ultimately you do want to be able to have someone available to coach a client who wants to work early, later. It's just a question of when am I ready to bring on up another coach to help me, and does it work with their schedule? Are they really wanting to be the early riser or the owl along with me?
Yeah. But I think that's so important too, to know what you like and your strengths and what you want to do rather than doing them, resenting them, hating it.
Absolutely. That was something really important to me. I'm glad I figured that out a lot when I was doing more of the independent contracting work. What has shifted, what I didn't expect, is how my energy levels would be affected by playing the role of both trainer, coach, and owner / receptionist. All of that has actually been what I didn't realize is, so I'm an introvert. I need downtime, alone time, quiet time. So those classic things of introversion. And I didn't realize how I would have to balance my energy for, I work 1 hour with a client, the client still wants to chat. And I might have another hour that I thought was going to be my scheduled break, but I'm in this conversation now with a client and it stretches all the way for another half an hour, 45 minutes. And I'm just going to the restroom before I can come back from my next client. And I thought I had a break to just be quiet, and I don't. And my studio is one big space. There's no division. There's no waiting room separate from the training area. So I didn't realize something as simple as a client showing up 30 minutes early. And now I thought that I would have 30 minutes of quiet time, and now I don't. I have, hey, welcome, how are you doing? So I didn't realize how all of those little 30-minute, 15-minute, 1 hour blocks are not all often mine. And another thing is a neighbor might drop in, the neighboring medical practitioner who I'm like, oh, I should talk to you. It's important to be a good neighbor, to network. And they're coming in at a time that I thought would be my free time. So that was a big scheduling thing. I was trying to be really good about, okay, I'm not going to take on clients at 7 a.m. That's not my strong suit. I'm not going to offer a group class at 6:30 a.m. I'm not that person. I didn't understand that all of the little things along the day were actually going to be the more challenging figuring out how to break rapport, break conversation politely to say, okay, I got to go on to my next thing, because if I don't, I'm not going to eat until 4:00 this afternoon, which has been a multi-day struggle.
Oh, and I'm just trying to think of how friends of mine who are in similar, business owner positions. And I know I have one friend who it's, one room similarly. And she just have a treatment room that she works out of. But she has set up a partition that the desk is behind. And I've been there, just to pick something up when a client, again, comes early. And it's the same thing. She's like, this is my time. Right. And so she said, thanks. I'll be with you in 10 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever it is. And they just sit there and occupy themselves with what it is. Because ultimately it's your time, even if they're there.
Absolutely. And you have the full range of clients who are better at understanding that. I think I'm getting really lucky that some of the clients I'm bringing on now actually, they're so sweet. They understand that I don't often remember to eat. And so they bring me little treats of watermelon or like, here, I brought you something. And they're some people are really respectful of that. Like, oh, I don't want to bother you. So it's just an interesting dilemma as somebody who wants to please and wants to make sure, like, does everyone like me? Do you like me? Right. I want to be nice and I want to be customer service oriented, and then trying to figure out. And I also, because I wanted to have no seating aside from some benches in my facility, I don't have a desk. And so I don't have a lot of those physical boundaries. Right. So I'll be doing stuff on the floor on my laptop, and it is an interesting struggle to figure out, how do I politely acknowledge the presence of somebody coming in? You are important. I will be with you. And even though it looks like I'm just casually sitting on the floor right now, this is my time. Right. So it's a new it's a new challenge I didn't anticipate, being an energy for what it's an energy consumer. That was it's a place that my energy has to go that I did not anticipate.
Yeah, that's interesting. One, I'll impart this onto you because my friend has said to me numerous times, she's like, look, you need to train your clients how to be good clients, how to be the type of client that you want. Right. And so setting those boundaries of, hey, I know you're here, but this is my time. Right. Even if like they don't, quote unquote, get it. Right. Like that's the way this show is run. Yeah. And so, but you're so right. Like I fall into the camp too of like, I want to be a people pleaser and I want to be nice and I want to be courteous, but that you don't want that to come at the expense of like your personal time, like you're saying, so that's so. And, I experience when I'm going to see clients and stuff like that, like this similar stuff, but at a much smaller level because they're not coming into my personal space, my place of work every day. So I would agree this was a challenge I didn't know was a challenge.
Yep. Yes. And I didn't really know how much, I know I'm an introvert. I know that can be at the end, but after like week 2 or 3, I was like, gosh, why am I so incredibly tired? And realized it was a lot of that, and learning new polite ways, especially if a neighbor dropped by to say, hey, I'm with somebody, or you know what, text me next time you want to meet up and we'll do coffee or something, to at least control that randomness that, introverts, if the phone rings, we get thrown off game. So it's a little way to control some of that.
So, stepping back a little bit, it's been 4 months now, ish. How has the current iteration of Stronger Human allowed you to do what you set out to do? I.e. your why or your intention of what you were hoping to create for yourself and others, and what's gotten in the way of that maybe you didn't foresee, kind of what you've alluded to as it relates to having to be on all the time, but maybe also just stuff that is just comes with the territory that you're still trying to figure out how to balance.
Yeah. Um, I'll start with what's interesting for me to reflect on is there is no one to blame now for for not being able to execute my mission in the world. So what is becoming increasingly a thing that I have to reflect about is what really is that mission. It's easy to sit where I was before, independent contracting, working for different places, and being able to say, well, one day I want to be able to do this, whatever that is. And I think at the time when I was constructing Stronger Human, it was about, a large part of it was about how, I think mostly my mindset in the beginning was about primarily the female in the workout space and how to bust through a lot of myths that especially are marketed to women. Bulky, that whole myth of, you lift weights and you're going to get bulky, what kind of diet you're supposed to have, everything is about long and lean. So my opening, and then everything was about working out super hard at the same time and not respecting hormone levels or rest. And so when I was creating Stronger Human, it was about how do we support someone in body, mind, and spirit. Now I'm fleshing out what does that actually even look like, right. Because an idea out there is very different when someone comes and they sign up and say, I'm here. Yeah. And now how do we actually do that? What are all the programs? What are all the, I'm coming 3 times a week. What are we working on? So there is, and then there's no one else to say, oh, it's because of this factor that I'm not able to execute X, Y, Z. So, I'm in the phase of continuing to refine what it is to be a stronger human, and why reminding myself over and over, why did I start this place? Starting this space was my answer to a few issues I was having out there in my world around me. Number one, there was no place that I could train barefoot that didn't disgust me. That wasn't either a full-on yoga or Pilates studio that didn't have the equipment that I wanted to work with, or where I felt like there were different places that had the equipment, but maybe not the kind of performance flooring, or so it was all of this. These like little pieces. Okay, so you've got the tools that I want to use, but not the setup that I want to do it in. The flooring's kind of off, whatever. So I wanted to create this perfect space where I could do things like barefoot training with all the tools that I wanted. Nobody would come in and ask you, well, why are you lifting weights? Which I think for a lot of women, there's that. It's better to do this modality, that modality, that modality. You're going to get hurt doing that. So that was a very important thing for me to answer. And then the other challenge I kept finding was, okay, so if you're all into strength training and performance training, you can't lie down on this floor because it's too filthy, and you don't want to do the environment is not one conducive to relaxation. Yeah, now, really it doesn't have to be perfect, right? Like we should be able to do our relaxation practices over time anywhere, but there's a certain amount of like making this an appealing environment where someone's not in the background doing some other thing that won't, as you're learning the skill of relaxation, to actually be able to relax. Yeah, so definitely. Those were my big things of designing the actual physical space. And then in terms of movement programming, we've been really thinking about how do we help people get to the basic fundamental movements, whatever those are. I'm still in the struggle of what are the fundamental movements. Typically it's things like, can you do a rolling pattern? Can you extend your spine from a face down position, right? Can you actually get into your cobra without some kind of back pain or neck issue? Can you squat? Can you hinge? These basic things that, every movement person out there, I think, is saying the exact same thing. It's just a difference of how you actually do them. So that those have been the struggles, and I think that those are, for people who sign up, they are working. So the big challenge to that is, am I in my own way because I'm still trying to get clear about how to execute this mission with the people who come in the door? And the second thing is, how do I speak about what we are doing in a way that someone says, I understand what that is, and I'm going to sign up for that? That has actually been the biggest challenge, is clients saying, gosh, this is so amazing what we do here. I just don't know how to describe it to people.
Wow.
And I go palm to fist, like that is, from a marketing standpoint, the absolute worst possible thing I could hear. From an ego flattery, I'm like, awesome, we're doing something unique. And the problem is you have no words to describe it to other human beings, because for you, who's not consuming pages and pages of Instagram feeds of different people doing similar things, you don't know what this is.
But in some ways, I think it's, it kind of, it's like, what's the saying? Like any press, like, is not bad press or something, right? Like so it kind of, all press is good. Yeah. So it kind of makes me think how, in some ways, there's maybe something advantageous about that if you think about it in the sense that if someone's describing this thing or attempting to but can't really like get there, then essentially someone's going to be so intrigued that like they're like, okay, I got to just do it. And there's almost like a sort of leaving you hanging aspect to it, where it's like, yeah, if you're intrigued by this thing or the fact that someone else's enthusiasm about it, then the only way to really understand it is to show up and give it a shot.
Yeah, and that's struggles upon struggles. What's been interesting with that is that I'm in this phase right now going to start changing a little bit of how I do my marketing and where I put my emphasis on. In the beginning, I'm imitating what I thought would be a good model. So we're going to have this many group classes. I need to have a lot of group classes, a lot of variety. And it turns out that my number one thing people are coming to Stronger Human for is to work one-on-one with people. So that was a big shift. I thought that we were going to be a group facility, or predominantly group and some private. Turns out we are almost all private work or semi-private work. And the group classes are almost like an added benefit to people who just want to do another thing during the week. So that's a very interesting shift. All of the effort that I have done in handing out physical marketing materials or doing social media, boosted advertising, things like that, the way people are finding me is literally through word of mouth. So I need to start shifting my structure to how do I incentivize referrals from an internal place. Yes, I still need to do all this other stuff, but it really is coming from, I got this result. This is what's changing for me going to Stronger Human. I think you should book an assessment. That's how it's all happening. And I didn't expect that.
And that's really how CrossFit exploded as well. Like Greg Glassman always talked about that like people, that ultimately there was no good way to describe CrossFit other than saying like, hey, are you free Wednesday at 10 a.m.? Okay, come by and let me like have you experience this thing. So there's something interesting about that, I think, and maybe even suggest like it's not so much a problem as much as it's like a sign you're really onto something.
Ooh, I'll have to sit with that.
Because I really think too, like we get too caught up in like how to package something, and I think people end up really enjoying the thing that they struggle describing to someone else who isn't also experiencing it.
Yeah.
It's like you just wouldn't get it. Like, you got to come check this thing out.
Right. And then what's also interesting is we do a lot of neuroperformance work with people. And what made me laugh is that when you're trying to train your client. I'm doing one kind of a drill with one client, and that client sees results from it. Let's say it's something to improve their balance. So there's a few systematic things that I might do with that person. And then that person goes to her friend and says, so you have to do all of these things and it will improve your balance. And it just makes me laugh about, okay, remember, that improved your balance. So while I'm happy to help your friend, because then the friend is doing the thing like, no, it doesn't. It doesn't work for me. And it's like, I know, because for you, that there's going to be, we have to assess. I don't even know what's going to help your friend yet. So it's just that, like, it makes me laugh. I'm happy and I'm like, excited that clients will talk about it in that way. And then I'll be like, oh, this is all my deep angst issues of like, how do I put my message into the world of like, okay, that worked for that person and this is going to work for you. So yes, it is the come and see marketing modality.
Yeah, seriously. Or was it stronger human, you gotta try it or something. Yeah. Or no, stronger human, there's no quick fix.
There's no quick fix. I like that. Yeah, definitely.
Well,
there might be a quick fix, but we have to assess first. Let me put my nerd brain.
Yeah.
Just like doing a little role playing here. Pretend you are talking to a walk-in or a phone inquiry. How do you describe the stronger human experience?
Well, I will do what I would do with any person, which is I start typically by saying how did you find out about us, and why did that pique your interest about coming here? Then I'm not going to be like, oh, it depends. It really does depend on then what they say, because what I'm trying to build, what we're trying to build, is a place that really is custom tailored to the individual. But generally, what you're going to find at Stronger Human is that we do things a little bit differently. And it depends on, again, what that person's, how much personal training have you done? What are you looking for? Are you open to doing things a little bit differently? And what I mean by that is we start with a 60, 90 to 120 minute, it depends on how much time it takes to get through your entire history. Things that you might not think matter, like that gallbladder removal scar surgery, might actually matter to me, because there might be some sensory work that we have to do on that area. So we're going to take a very long history. We're going to do a lot of assessment to figure out how we can. Most people are going to have some level of pain is when they're coming to me. Most people have maxed out their insurance by the time that they get to me, or it's such an old injury that they didn't think they needed to rehab it anymore. And I'm not pretending that I'm I'm not trying to be a therapist for some, right? I got out of that game. Right. But what I am looking at is maybe you actually have no sensation over your scar, your tattoo. You cannot feel. And maybe that's creating some level of threat to the body. So our first phase is figuring out how do we decrease overall threat in your body to minimize the amount of pain that you're experiencing. And then figuring out what are your goals that you want to work on and how best we can achieve those. And the client can have any goal they want, really. But I realized in the beginning, I was like, it has to be our method, and they have to first make it through this many skills before they can do anything that they want to do. And I had a really interesting shift over the past week where I realized that it really is about autonomy for the client. What's going to motivate them? What is meaningful enough for them to make a financial commitment and a time commitment? And I don't get to decide what that goal is. So in the past, where I might have thought body composition is trivial, and I'm not a body comp coach, I'm starting to realize, like, I don't get to decide that. And I might not understand, or I don't even need to tell you what to eat. Let me help you figure out the habits that are going to be required in order for you to do anything that you want to do. And if you need to see me 3 times a week because you are incapable of doing homework, and that's someone like me, right? I have a really hard time doing any homework assigned to me about my body. There's a lot of blind spots involved there. Then I will be here 3 times a week to help you with that process. So
that's great.
That's really how a conversation honestly would go.
I'm sold.
Yeah. Sign us up.
Yeah.
Come to Phoenix. I am here.
Can you tell us more about the history intake? Do you have a system for that?
An ever morphing system. I do, and I'd be very happy to share.
Yeah, because I like one of the things that's really fascinated me, somewhat disappointingly, is that all the places I've worked for have pretty much not had any sort of history intake. Like on one end of the spectrum, it's like, wow, like from a legality issue, this is really dangerous. And then on the other end of the spectrum, it's just like, well, like we're not really creating enough context to appropriately know how to match the individual needs, or even just have some awareness of what's going on. Because I think most places it's very much just like, okay, if you sign the waiver, it's like, all right, well, then like anything goes. But I'm really interested to hear what you've kind of come to in deciding what's useful for you, and then also what you feel like maybe ultimately becomes useful for them, because maybe at first they feel like, oh, this is just another like doctor's office, like, oh, I gotta check these, like those forms that like we all hate. Right.
Yeah. Such a good question, because I am constantly revising our intake process. And so I will say this: on one hand, if you come to a group class, I am doing the standard, here's the liability release waiver. Do you have any major injuries I should know about? Okay. That's all I have. We have five minutes for an exchange.
Right.
If you come to work with me one-on-one, typically it starts with a minimum of 60-minute conversation, because that's mostly just talking and assessment, and then there's the option to move to a deeper assessment. You get all of me. You get all of me when that happens. So our intake process, I detest when, and I think you guys would too, when you go to the doctor's office, they make you fill out a million forms that ask you about family history and blood pressure and all this stuff, and you check and you check and you check. Then you sit in front of the physician, or even usually
they ask all those same questions.
They re-ask the same questions, and you're like, didn't you read the form, or what? It's just a weird process. And then, or you go to a gym, they make you, some places have you do nothing. They want to know about major injuries or something, and do they even look at it?
No,
I don't think that happens. And then, or there's the one that they ask so many questions, and where does it even go? So what I decided to do for me is I have the clipboard, we sit down, and the reason why it takes so long is because I ask you the questions. You don't have the clipboard in front of you, unless there's certain parts where I'll turn it to you. And we start with goals. Second thing that I've just implemented, which I wonder from a sports psychology background what you'll think of this. I just went to a training this past weekend that was all about habit change, which is very fresh in my mind. And so the one piece I walked away with, one of the many pieces I walked away with, was doing a basic personality test, in quotation marks. There's millions of them to do. Right. This one is simple, fundamental tendencies. What are you? Are you good at following the rules? Do you rebel against every rule that's out there? Are you somebody who needs a lot of me to tell you what to do? Or do you question every word that comes out of my mouth? Because let's break through. How do I even talk to you? Who are you? Right. My biggest struggle in the group fitness setting in the past and still is I have no rapport. I don't know who you are. Yeah. And being the introvert that I am, I really need to know who is in front of me in order to feel comfortable as a coach.
That's so interesting.
So I've decided, like, I'm weird unless I know who is in front of me. So then there's a few other traits, like, are you somebody, simple questions, are you a marathoner, are you a sprinter? Meaning, and how and I talk about that in the context of our work that we're going to do together. You might be many things in your life, you might be many things at different times, but when you talk about fitness, marathon versus sprinter, do I need to program really intense stuff for you right out the gate? Or are you like, slow and steady, we'll get there? Big picture versus step by step. Do I need to speak about here's where we're going? Or do I need to speak about these are the little details that are going to get us from one place to the next? So I'm implementing that. And then pretty much allow this person to tell me all of your injuries. And I have additional criteria that I care about from a neuroperformance standpoint that they might not think about. How many car accidents have you had? Have you ever had, big severe blows to the head? Because for me, I'm thinking, okay, what information do I need about risk? Most things are going to be sensory issues. They cannot feel what numbness, tingling, some kind of scar that they haven't thought about, that they have no sensation in that area. Or if they've had multiple whiplash injuries and multiple seatbelt traumas, then there's going to be a lot of other stuff that we need to look at for that person. So they tell me their long history, and then we actually jump into assessments. And so I used to use FMS as an assessment tool. Now I feel like that comes later in the programming, because right now I actually want to see, can you do basic things like stand and have your balance, both feet, and close your eyes, and how long does that go for? Can you do it on one foot, the other foot? Some simple tests, again, that we use in the neuro performance space. So those are the indicators that I use. And then simple things like, can you even get up and down off the floor without your hands? Because that tells me a lot about, where we're going to start. Because half the things, how many times, okay, get up off the floor. So where am I even going to put them in the gym? Do I have to put them near the suspension trainer or the wall so that I can, it's simple thing, but for me, who needs to have all this written down, I know some people might be better and like, oh, I always remember. And over time, yes, I remember that so-and-so we're going to be in that part of the gym. But when we first start, it's so much information, like where do I begin? Yeah. That for myself, I need this systematized way of collecting the pieces, and then I can decide with the client, so you say you want to do high intense cardio, but we can't get up and down off the floor without our hands, and we can't actually balance with our eyes closed for longer than 5 seconds. So where should we start? And typically they will agree that we need to start with some level of either joint mobility or or we'll do I do a bunch of breathing assessments. Can you move the rib cage in all the ways that I want to see it moving? And when we do something like crocodile breathing, you're prone and you breathe into your belly. There's some other ways of doing that where can you actually breathe into the belly? Can you breathe thoracically? And can you breathe clavicularly face down? So they get the feedback of the chest against the floor. And I can see from the back what's moving or not moving. And they'll be like, wow, I can't do that. And so it allows us to have a conversation about, you want to do cardio, do you even have the respiratory mechanics to be benefiting from that kind of exercise right now? So again, where should we start? So that's kind of my ever refining work that we're doing on our intake process.
Wow.
Awesome.
This is amazing. Well, and one thing I really like that, because I too am an introvert, and you said something that I never really was able to put into words, which is that like, in group classes, I have such difficulty sometimes, building rapport with someone that I haven't already sort of gotten to know in my kind of one-on-one desired way. And that's, and to your point about sort of the assessment or the intake and having some of these metrics or profiling to kind of help guide you in that is I think really key. And it's something that kind of came to me early in my sports psychology studies, this idea of like, hey, what if you just sat with a new client for the first time and asked them like how they like to be motivated, like how different you would then approach them in the class. And that as trainers, in quotes, at the front of the room, there is a sort of generalized assumption that everybody is going to be motivated in this class by you yelling, or like getting in their face or turning the music louder, which is not necessarily the case. So, to your point, like, oh, could I kind of have profiles on each of these different clients that just give me a more individualized sense of their unique dispositions toward how they want to best experience the world, or in your sense, like this service that you're providing.
Right.
And then the other thing that you made me think of is what Kenny Kane and Dr. Andy Galpin talk about on one of their episodes of their podcast, The Body of Knowledge, which is this framework or metaphor that Dr. Andy Galpin came up with, which is, are you a cook, baker, or chef? And the placeholders are that, like, a cook is somebody that, as it relates to food, doesn't necessarily care to weigh and measure everything, right? It's more of like a feel, like, I'll put a little salt and sprinkle some pepper, and versus like baking, which I don't do, but my understanding is that, like, you can't, there's no
baking is an exact science.
Right, there you go.
It's chemistry.
It's chemistry.
Chemistry in the kitchen.
Right. And so
Alton Brown.
So if you're the type of person that's a baker, then you really want, like, okay, tell me what my macros need to be. Give me that, exact information. And then the chef, right, is sort of the perfect balance of the two. But what I found interesting about that is thinking about, okay, what is my default personally? And then if it differs from the client in front of me, how am I going to sort of be comfortable getting out of my default to help them with their own disposition, right? Like, I'm very kind of cook, so like weighing and measuring kind of just like makes me uncomfortable. But if I'm working with a client where that's their thing, then I have to take that on in order to be a good coach.
Yeah, and I will say, I mean, I'm going to pay tribute to where these ideas have congealed for me. One resource is Andy Clower. He's up in Berkeley, California, and his space is called Fitness Evolved. And the other place that inspired me to use this fundamental tendencies, it's called the Rubens and Halverson fundamental tendencies is the template that I'm using for it.
Oh, okay.
And that came out of a course from the Z Health world that's called Sustenance and Spirit, where they look at habit change.
Yeah.
And like I've been alluding to, even if we told somebody exactly what they need to do, they still don't do it because it's about the habits that you're trying to build for them. So those are two resources that have inspired me to use this intake process the way I'm doing it, if people want. I did not magically come up with that. Now,
came to me in a dream.
Yeah, came to me in a magical dream, but I've been tinkering with how it fits. And what I really realize about that tinkering process is I have to build an intake form that works for me. So where Andy Clower from Fitness Evolved, he comes from an athletic training background. Some of his questions are far more medical. One, his licensure allows him to ask different questions, I think. And two, he actually knows what to do with some of the information. I don't always know, like, some of those questionnaires, I'm like, well, what if they told me they have this? Do I even know what I'm supposed to do? So why should I ask questions that I don't understand how I would respond to the client? Remember those places that you list me all your medications, and then you're like, oh, I don't know what any of these things are. So why are we asking that question at the scope that I'm in? Now, I take it, I'm like, I should probably learn a little bit more about that, or what things I should, in my continuous journey for acquisition of knowledge. Great. But at the moment, I am not going to ask a bunch of questions on what medicines you're on, because I actually wouldn't even know what we would do with that information.
It's so funny because, like, to Alex's point, like, how, like, train your client, right? Like, I've been trained now where, like, I won't even tell people what my medications or supplements are anymore, because, like, I know they don't know what to do with it, right? And like, it's just going to be more complication, or more like sort of questioning of like, oh, what's that? Like, wait, what is that supplement for? Like, gut health, what? Like, it's just like, so it's this disappointing thing where, like, you receive service of a certain type for so long, then you become conditioned to like, oh, that doesn't really mean anything.
Right. And I'm also learning that this intake process is lengthy. And it is not going, I'm going to have to find different ways I might have to break it up for somebody who's the sprinter personality, who's like, let's just get to I came here to work out, right? So either I have to have a different conversation with that person, or I'm going to have to break it up in different ways, find out what is most critical for me to know right now, and then come back to certain things later throughout the session. So what I constantly have to remind myself is, at the moment, I am not trying to scale my business at all. I am a one unit, so I'm not trying to replicate this. This is an inefficient process that I am using so that I can be the best coach that I can be right now. So I am allowed to say, with this person I do it this way, and with that person I do it that way, because I'm not trying to develop 16 units by next year where we have a process. And
That's the startup.
And I forget that because I came from a background where we were trying to scale all the time. We're scaling restaurants, we're growing. So what systems and processes do we have in place that are foolproof? So I had this conversation with my boyfriend because he was like, Isabelle, remember, you are not trying to be building a multi-unit place right now. You are allowed to be doing things however you need to do them in order to satisfy this process that works. And so I have decided to bias the process to work for myself as well as the client, but really so that I can be a better trainer for them right out of the gate. And also those questions help reveal what are my tendencies to the client if they are someone who wants to know a little bit more about me. They get a result from an assessment, and if they care about building a rapport with me, they'll say, wait a minute, I thought, oh my gosh, I can't do this. And I'm like, I can't do some of these things either. Let me show you. There are going to be certain mobility drills that I demonstrate to you that I am working on. And I'll even say, I have a really hard time with this because you know how you have this, and this going on? I have the opposite version. I have that, and that going on. So it's really hard for me to move my neck in this way or that way. And I think that for me builds the relationship that I'm looking for, especially if we're going to have an ongoing, coaching relationship.
Hell yeah.
I just want to circle back to the medication idea, only because I took Sarah Court's Quantum Leap training this past weekend, and she did a specialty topic on the neuromuscular system. And so we were talking about some pathologies and diagnoses where you are taking medications that have adverse effects.
Right.
And so knowing, you have Parkinson's, you're probably taking this medication, and if you are, your symptoms are going to be less when you have just taken the drug versus when it's been in your system for some time. And so, I think for all of us, once we've nailed the basics and, feeling more comfortable, and then you do have clients coming to you with issues like MS and Parkinson's and stroke and stuff like that.
Right.
Staying within your scope of practice, but also knowing what some of the side effects are can just, further enhance the experience for both parties. Yeah, I feel that is one area that I'm like, oh, I got to learn a little bit more, even on the level of like blood pressure. I'm like, shit, like, should I take people's blood pressures before we start? There's interesting ways to use it for the neuroperformance world, because you might actually have two different blood pressures on one arm versus the other, which helps me identify a whole other thing going on for you. But, it's that like, what if I got the information and didn't know what to do with it? Does this mean I shouldn't train today? And I'm like, So I will admit that is one area that I'm like, I need to brush up more deeply on that, because there are so many things that can impact. Or if you're going to start giving nutritional advice to people who are on thyroid medication, I don't know, right? And in Arizona, our scope is actually much bigger. There's very few regulations on what kind of nutritional information you can give to somebody here. So, it's more lax. You are allowed to write a meal plan for somebody here. There's just more things that you're allowed to do that can fall within your scope. And so it's one that's like, I always think to myself, like, I'm not going to give advice on that because I don't actually know enough. So, yeah. And also, it might not be something that interests you. Yeah, there's too. You don't have to be everything for everybody. You're like, I really don't care. Yeah, that's the great part of being like, you know what? I don't do that, but I know someone who does. Yeah. Delegation, man. That's been the best. It's like knowing, and you've already said this, like, I know I'm not good in the mornings and I don't want to do this. And that type of self-awareness will just make you so much happier in the long run, knowing, sure, I could spend the 6 hours it would take to like get this done, but I don't want to do that. I'd rather just have somebody else do it for me.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Well, in the interest of time, we do want to hit some rapid fires that we didn't get to last time. But before we go there, I am curious to hear about the coach. Because I know you've, for most of this conversation, you've alluded to it being a one-man show, a one-woman show. But you do have some coaches working for you, correct?
I do.
So I would love to hear. I scoured the mind body portal a little bit, saw some different names. I assume that wasn't just like you, like, putting on a different like costume or something. Like
today I will be this person.
And so I mean, I love it's so great hearing you articulate your vision and now have this house for it to live in. And I'm super curious to hear, okay, so then like, what was that process of trusting others with that vision, and saying like, okay, like these are going to be people on my team that are going to be a part of this journey.
Yeah. So I have 5 people. It's a small little team. Some people are doing more one-on-one work, actually. Some people are doing more group class. And it was actually a really, really easy process to bring on the individuals that are on the Stronger Human team, that are in the Stronger Human family.
Yeah.
Debbie Simmer is in the Z Health Master Trainer program, and she actually approached me. We ran into each other at a course, and she was like, I'm kind of in between things, and there's this great guy, Andy Clower at Fitness Evolved, and he has this model for a program that I think you might be interested in. And that's actually how we adopted our 12-week program where we take people through. So we're modeling off of something that he's doing that has been fantastic for us. So she and I work on that program with people, which is essentially what are all the things we need to know about your body to make you ready to receive the benefits of exercise. Getting out of the major pain things that you might be experiencing, or even understanding what things in the body are producing threat for you. So we take 12 weeks to figure out how do we get through some of those roadblocks that are impeding the benefit of exercise, and then actually what are some of the fundamental movements that you need to be able to do in order to do any kind of physical activity that you want. So there's that little piece. And then I was Prentice Rhodes, he's a senior Strong First instructor. He's a master trainer with NASM. I had been training with him personally to help me prepare for Strong First. He is one of my coaches locally. And when it came time for me to put together this vision, I just sat down with Prentice and said, I'm building a space and I'd love to invite you to come do things there. And he said, fantastic. And that was that. And so, I mean, he coaches me personally, and he teaches people within our, I get to take classes from him. Yeah. And so it's a nice symbiotic relationship there that involved, like, I didn't have to go out and search. He was interested and available at the right timing. And then Tammy Link is my resident yogi. She again is a close friend, someone I've always admired out here. And she does a lot of work with yoga for chronic pain. She's done a lot of Neil Pearson's work. She's done a lot of Jules Mitchell's work. And that was an easy add-on to the team. And then Alex Papazan is another person we brought on, and she also has had experience in Katie Bowman's work and in Z Health, and was looking for a place to host her class. And so it was just one of these, like, okay, everything fits really well. And wow. I think that's kind of going to be enough of our group classes, because we are going to focus increasingly on the one-on-one training. So we have enough classes to offer to our members. And what it's funny, I didn't go out seeking this, but now in retrospect realize that the common themes that are amongst all of our people who come on board with us is this this sense of play comes up in every single one of the discussions. We all teach in a very playful manner, in a way that is about play, move in a way that makes you feel good, move in a way that is experimental, and see what happens. Another big thing that's happening right now for all of us is that we're all increasingly saying day after day, we are modality agnostic. Like, we're interested in learning from all of the greats, but we are really not committed to any one way of doing things. I'm having my own deep, like, how many licenses do I actually want to maintain, and what is really important? Because why do I need to have so many letters or whatever accumulate? I'm happy to go to a course. Do I really need to get all the letters? And what does that do for me? Do I need to be citing every time this is this movement ways thing of doing things, or trademark this, trademark that? So that's another kind of theme we all have. We're all within a lot of movement modalities, but when we're in the space, we're very much like, it depends, and it depends on who we're working with, and we're not going to say this is the one way you have to do things. So that goes in with our theme of play. I think those are the two major trends that I'm seeing with.
Those are your core values.
Those are all my core values. Yeah.
I love that idea of being modality agnostic, though, because I think, after taking a training and you're paying the licensing fee and you just get so deep into it and you're like, and this is everything, and it never is everything.
Yeah, it's a big realization for me to be like, so one person has made it popular. It doesn't mean that they were the first. It doesn't mean that they were the only. It's just the only name I've heard of. And then you get deeper and deeper. And for some reason, then you want to say, everyone therefore needs this. Like, I've discovered the club bell, and I'm like, I'm really learning, like, no, not everybody needs the club bell, right? Or anything else, resistance stretching or isometric contraction. Like, not everybody needs that. It fits on a very big category of tools that you can use depending on what the person has going on, what the person cares about, what's exciting for them. That was a really interesting question. A new trainer came and said, what is the best tool that I should use for an obese person? And I'm like, first of all, obese people are like any other person. And secondly, I think you should use the tool that the client is most excited to use, because they will continue to come back and use it until they get excited about something else.
That's a great example.
Yeah.
Has it been weird taking on the role of boss for these colleagues of yours?
And I don't think I do take on the role of boss, which is interesting. It's something I'm like, that's an area that I have to work on. I'm not comfortable with the role of boss. I like to be a collaborator. I'm far more comfortable with the role of collaborator. And so right now, that's what works for me. Is you're independently contracted, you're excited to be here, you want to do your thing here. What do you want to do? Where does it fit on the schedule?
Got it.
What processes do we need for things to run more smoothly, and keeping it minimal? I'm still not comfortable with that one.
Well, that's good. Like, finding, and I guess you don't have to embody that one necessarily.
Well, that's what's been interesting, is like, I don't know if we need to have, like, we don't have to have 10 team meetings. We don't have to have those things for right now. And maybe I will grow into it, or maybe I will say that's not the role for me. So I'll bring on a manager or something.
Yeah.
I always loved staff meetings because I like hanging out with everybody.
Yeah.
It was just me.
It's weird. I like staff meetings too.
I do too.
And it was always awkward because, like, I like them, but everyone's like, oh, the staff meetings. And I'm like, yeah, the staff meetings.
I'm like, we get to be on the same page.
Yeah, right. Like, what's the big deal? Like, I like a structured play dates. Like,
I know.
Come on. Why are we so upset about this?
That's why we're friends. We
Yeah.
like our structured play day.
Yeah.
I'll have to think deeper about. Well, I think what I am organizing for the team is I haven't told them this, so if they listen to this, in October I want us the trapeze guys come back to town, and so cool. I think that will be our staff meeting. We'll go do trapeze together. I think that's more like
the trapeze guys come back to town. They're like, it's a traveling circus.
They travel between Santa Monica, New York, and Phoenix. So
okay.
Back in town, and we'll be flying with them.
Well, maybe too, you can redefine this idea of staff meeting as really just like staff structured play date.
Yeah,
I like that. It's so nice to be with the people you work with, because especially in a movement space, we're like ships passing in the night. I might see the person who teaches after me for the 5 minutes before they teach, and then I don't see them, but I do like them and I want to hang out with them, but I can't make plans to hang out with everybody unless the head person says, let's do this,
Right.
It's true. We'll have structured play date then.
Yes. Revolutionizing the workspace.
Revolutionizing. It is decided.
They're no longer going to be called staff meetings. They're going to be called structured play dates.
I like that.
Writing that down.
Tell the world.
All right. Rapid fire question number 1.
Okay.
Favorite coaching memory?
Oh, favorite coaching memory. I'm not gonna lie, there's been a lot lately because
I bet.
We're getting the first graduates of the 12-week program.
Oh, wow.
And like I have video clips that I'll slowly be releasing as some of this stuff happens, but like the before and after shit is dramatic for one of my dear clients had some balance problems, and we figured out that some auditory stimulus was enough, or whether it was auditory stimulus or just paying more attention, focusing on something that isn't the balance, was allowing her to go from standing on one foot for like 5 seconds, shaking all over the place, to just boom, steady, 45-second, no problem. And so that was one of those like, this is pretty cool. Yeah, there's stuff like that happens that every day I'm like, that's just awesome. Your body and nervous system is the coolest thing ever, and sometimes there are quick fixes. We just have to figure out what the fix is.
Nice. You should get that on a t-shirt.
Just long t-shirt.
The longest t-shirt ever.
What are you working on as a coach?
Oh, this is a really good one. Yeah, actually, I was not working on anything personally opening this business, because this was like birthing of the business, and I could not train at all in all of this process. I didn't have recovery. I felt tired. Everything hurt all the time. And so for me, it was this I felt anxious or angst about it, because I felt very disconnected between here. I'm supposed to be this movement person, and I actually can't do anything right now because I'm not sleeping enough, I'm not eating correctly in order to support my training goals. So next week, actually, I'm finally in a place to start again. I picked a cert a while back. I'm moving more into, so Scott Sonnen's work has been really interesting to me, and I have signed up to take his TAC-FIT cert course, whatever, in October. So what's interesting is that all of the work to do is all body weight stuff to start with. They use kettlebells and clubs and suspension work also, but the prerequisites are all body weight work stuff. And in the past, I'd been more motivated by high weight, got to get my gains. And now I'm like, ooh, can I even do different types of push-ups? Can I even do different types of body weight position exercises? So that's my new quest.
Cool. In what ways are you hard on yourself as a coach?
I would say that just now. Like there's this, I'm very hard on myself about my own body. Something that I was at this nutrition and coaching course over the weekend, and I went up to Dr. Cobb, and at the end of it, thanking him and saying, one of the things I really struggle with is because I I don't think I have the body that any of my clients are saying, I want to purchase that. I want that physique. And, number one reason I think people come to fitness is actually for physique goals, whether they're saying that out loud or not. I think secondary, they're like, I want to get out of pain, but I want to look good first, right? So, or whatever order that ends up being in physique, it always matters, right? We're humans. We are attracted to things that look like healthy organisms, right? So for me, I'm very hard on myself about that. And he said, I invite you to start thinking about how your struggle with how you deal with this will actually help other people understand their struggle. Yes. And so that's a hard thing for me to wrap my mind around. And body comp for me is very hard to and expectations I think people have. John Berardi has that great one about the trade-offs between body composition and what your lifestyle actually has to look like. And he's like, the fitness models, this is what they are doing on a day-to-day basis. They're meal planning. They're probably not taking social invitations with people that they can't control what the eating environment is. And they likely only look like that for the cover shot. And then they go back to some other swing again. And not saying that you can't have that. It's just, for me, I'm like, ooh, that's a huge struggle. So I'm hard on myself about that. And the second thing I'm hard on myself about is when I'm not delivering for it's something along the lines of I'm dealing always with, I need to be liked, I need to be liked, I need to be liked. And that is when you work one-on-one with people and someone doesn't renew their membership, or they don't want to book next week, and I get this whole like, oh God, everybody hates me, nobody likes me, and it's stupid because I forget about, hey, Isabelle, like these 10 clients didn't quit, so but also that I go into this deep process of what did I not do for that person, what did I not do right, what did I not do good enough. So there's a lot of that I struggle with, and fortunately have good coaches to help me process.
You are not alone with any of those.
Yeah. So what I realized for myself is I have to have a coach or a mentor or a therapist to help me with those things, because the weight of trying to process it on my own will make me, just endless chatter.
And our partners can only hear so much of it.
They can really only hear so much of it.
Lastly, extracurricular education you would recommend: reading, video, seminar, personal practice.
Let's see here. Okay, I'm gonna plug Z Health more. Z Health Performance Solutions, Dr. Cobb's work, Eric Cobb. It has.
Why is it Z? What's the Z?
You know what? I've never asked. I assumed. Well, one, their logo is like the Z becomes part of the DNA double helix, which is pretty cool. And I don't know. I'm guessing it's A through Z, like the whole the whole span, and it really is. So the baseline curriculum starts with understanding neurology in the context of sports performance. Dr. Cobb is on a mission to elevate the trainer, and we can only do that by making sure that people have the information they need. So what is interesting as I get deeper into his coursework is that he really helps you understand what I like is that he's actually, again, modality agnostic. You can be whatever you are, gyrotonic, club bells, whatever your thing is. He's not trying to make another movement thing. He helps you understand what are the basic movements you need to be able to do these things, and then where all the stuff fits in your toolkit. So where would taping be appropriate? Where is wrapping appropriate? Where is sensory replacement appropriate? Where is behavioral change appropriate? So he's really giving people this big toolkit. Wow. Why would you do certain breathing methods? Why would you do foam rolling or not do foam rolling? So it's that greater education of how all of the pieces fit. So for me, it's just been a monumental education process of understanding how to do what we do better.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it does sound really, really cool.
And the second one, I would say, I'm really intrigued at the way that I signed up for his course in October because I think the way that Scott Sonnen moves is actually fascinating, and I believe he has had lots of fingers in lots of different modalities that have become more popular. I think he's behind a lot of the tools they're using over at the Onnit Academy. And some of the training that happened for those guys. So I'm very intrigued to work with him. Looking at how he moves is very, very interesting.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for spending the time chatting with us today. I would like to talk to you for like another 6 hours. So maybe for some structured play dates in the future.
Yeah. Yes, structured play dates in the future.
And all the show notes, I've been making notes about what we've been talking about and things we've mentioned. They will live over on the website, behindthepodiumpodcast.com. But where can people find you to hang out and train and follow you?
StrongerHuman.com is our website. StrongerHuman is our Facebook handle, and then Stronger_Human is our Instagram handle. So that's where you can find me and the folks I work with.
Awesome. And you guys post some really cool stuff. I do have to say on Instagram, you had a post maybe last week or something where you were like tapping somebody's toe while she was with her eyes closed. I was like, oh my gosh, what is happening?
That is definitely a fun one to play. All sensory mapping. Can I tell what finger or toe is being touched? So enjoy, play.
Like sorcery over there at Stronger Human.
Yes, please come play with us if you're in town in Phoenix.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much for having me back. I really appreciate the opportunity and the time to hang out with you.
Yeah, maybe we should actually hang out.
Yeah, I think that's true.
Well,
I think that's true.
Are you going to Yoga Tune-Up retreat?
I will be at the Yoga Tune-Up retreat.
All right.
September.
Structured play day.
Structured play day.
All right. Well, until next time, literally, we know the next time will come. Round 2 will become soon to be round 3. And if you're enjoying the show, we would love the support of a review, some sharing, some listening, repeat, just like, keep the episodes on repeat. Isabelle, actually, you are one of our most popular downloads.
Yeah, you are.
So
That's pressure.
You're up there.
We do this for the fans. We brought you back up.
There's also a Behind the Podium Instagram. It's just at Behind the Podium if you want to come hang out and see photos of guests and chat with us. And on Facebook, Behind the Podium Podcast as well. So hang out, share, so that people like Isabelle will come hang out with us even more.
Totally. Help us bring Isabelle back.
Oh, God.
All right. And that's a wrap.
Hey guys, thanks for listening to Behind the Podium, Unveiling the Coach. If you have enjoyed what you listened to, head over to iTunes and leave us a review. More information on each episode and the podcast in general can be found at behindthepodiumpodcast.com. We'll catch you next time.